spookies, and welcome back to the Appalachian Spooky Hour podcast, or just welcome if you're new here. I'm Sam, your host. Happy Friday the 13th. If you guys are listening to this when it's supposed to go up, it is Friday the 13th. A day rife with superstitions and cheesy 80s horror movies that we all love. But, actually, I think the first one might have came out in like 1978 or 79, but you get what I'm saying. They peaked in the 80s with those. But anyway, it's been kind of a rough week. I'm behind in posting, as some of you know, because I've just been feeling under the weather. Allergy season has been awful. It's like it's never going to end. But whining aside, we are going to have an interesting one tonight. So grab a drink and lock the door because we're going to be talking about some internet famous Appalachian superstitions. And I think you guys are going to like this one for sure. So let's just dive right in. I really don't have any notes to thrust upon you. We'll talk about that stuff at the end of the episode. But yeah, let's just go here. I'm sure by now most of you have seen people talking about things you should not do in Appalachia. These videos can be found, all over TikTok, YouTube, and even sometimes they show up on Facebook. I know the kids, quote, the kids, don't really do Facebook, but I do see them there every now and then. Basically, if you're on social media at all, you've likely heard of these superstitions. The first one I want to talk about, I think, is the most widely spread of these stories. I'm, of course, talking about the fact that you don't whistle at night in Appalachia. And if you hear a whistle coming from the woods, no, you didn't. A lot of superstition and folklore in Appalachia came with the folks who settled the area. They brought stories from home along with them, and they carried over into the traditions we still have today. A few of those traditions do relate back to whistling, especially at night, and these came from all over the world. And I literally mean that. In Turkey, they say if you whistle at night, you'll attract demons. The Inuit people believe if you whistle at the northern lights, you'll call down spirits. In Korea, they believe night whistling can attract ghosts, demons, and other creatures. This is not unique to Appalachia, but it has become associated with the area thanks to the internet. If you hear a whistle at night coming from the woods, it's likely haints calling to you, or some mysterious cryptid or creature. If you whistle back, it's a bit like you're inviting them in. And I say the word haints, that's more what we refer to ghosts as here, You don't say it's haunted, it's haunted, but they're haints. They're spirits that kind of roam around. Now, in some stories, this entity or haint has a name. It is called the Whistler. It's believed to be an ancient spirit, something that existed here long before the settlers ever even came. Those who have heard it and who made it to tell the tale claim that they felt a deep sense of dread, almost as though they instinctively knew that whatever was calling to them was not human. Basically, just avoid whistling back or even acknowledging that you heard anything at all. It's the best way to ensure that you don't get yourself into a nasty situation, or that you don't end up haunted. Because it's how you get haunted, so just don't do it, y'all. So is there any truth to this lore? Honestly, I don't know. The only things I ever hear at night are my German Shepherd freaking out every time he sees a shadow, and maybe the call of a good whippoorwill every now and then. If you do hear whistling at night, it probably is in your best interest to not investigate or anything. Not just is this how you could get haunted, it's also how you potentially end up murdered. So just avoid it. Because if you hear somebody whistling in the woods, odds are pretty good it's probably another human who's up to no good and shouldn't be in your woods at night. Another tale I keep seeing online, and one that particularly rubs me the wrong way, is that you don't stare into the trees. I even made my own counter TikTok to this one. It just annoyed me that bad, and I'm not even kidding. I will link my rebuttal to this that's on TikTok down below in the description of this episode so you guys can check it out if you are so inclined. So at its most basic, I think this one is really just meant to scare people who aren't familiar with the area. The woods here can be deep and isolated, full of shadows and strange noises. What better way to terrify someone who isn't familiar, right? I've never bought into this because personally, I want to know if anything is watching me in return. But let me just shove my irritation aside here and talk about the why of this, outside of just scaring the shit out of city folk. We again harken back to those who first settled here, people who came to the region looking to make a life. They formed small communities, but a lot of people actually lived in relative isolation. Building homes far away from town, they found themselves at the mercy of the forest. And it pretty much did provide more or less everything they needed. They could hunt for food there, set up small farm plots there. There was usually an abundance of fresh water. There were also a lot of dangers, wild animals, harsh weather, lack of medicine or access to care if you got hurt. Oftentimes there were native people living in the region who were very upset you encroached on their land. Don't look in the trees could have been kind of a simple sort of warning. Stick to the area that you know, where you're safe, and don't go looking for trouble. There are also these old stories again of things that dwell in the woods. Spirits, haints, other things that could do you harm. So just avoid them and they'll leave you be. If you're like me, however, you want to know what's out there, stare into the woods to your heart's content. I've never heard of anybody being done in by peering into the trees. I want to see what's coming, so maybe that's just a me thing. But, okay. Moving on. Much like not whistling at night, you should also exercise caution if you hear something call your name. This is another one that I've seen frequently online. Not quite as prominently as not whistling, but it is there. If you're out alone in the woods and you hear something call your name, pretend you didn't. It's likely some nasty trickster of a haint looking to lure you off into the forest to become lost. This might be the most interesting of all of these stories because we can trace this back to a lot of the Appalachian ancestors, the first settlers here, and some of their actual beliefs. You guys have probably heard of these. Maybe just in Harry Potter. Maybe one time on an old Disney show called So Weird that was fantastic, but that got so intense and scary for children they took it off eventually. But first they got rid of the main character named Fee and replaced her with like her cousin or whatever, and the show went downhill and then it got canceled. They tried to lighten it up. It wasn't fun anymore. But I just know you guys are going to know some of these. Will-o'-the-wisp, Friar's Lantern, Hinky Pucks, whatever you want to call it. This creature from the UK is known to lure travelers to their deaths in the bog. But this isn't entirely unique to just the UK. Earwish is the German version, and sorry if I messed that up, and the feu follet in France. Thailand has the Naga fireballs on the Mekong, and the St. Louis Lights in Saskatchewan. In Arab folklore, it's called the Abu Fanus. I think I'm saying that right. Again, apologies if I butchered any of that. I know French and still don't know if I got that right, so forgive me. But those are just other examples. They are all dangerous trickster spirits that guide people to their doom, more or less. You follow them off, become lost, and never return. Hearing your name in the woods is a similar situation. You go into the trees, and you're not likely to come out again alive. Something's trying, nefariously, to lure you away. So it really is best on your part if you just pretend you heard nothing and get on with your life. I know that's easier said than done, but it's still wise advice. So, a little sidebar here. When I was a kid, my grandparents' nearest neighbors had goats. You could hear those suckers for miles. Like those annoying sounds echoed through these hills and hollers, y'all. Sometimes when they bleated, it did sound like they were saying my name. It sounded like they were going, Sam! Just bear with me. My pappy had me dead convinced that something was calling for me, and that was enough to scar me for life. He thought it was funny. I was mildly traumatized. But even as a kid, I knew not to call back. So, maybe that was just me being weird and suspicious and a little bit paranoid because something was yelling my name. But, yeah, it's creepy. Don't like it. Really, these are all just cautionary tales passed down from our ancestors. Some of them really are common sense. If you hear someone whistling in the woods at night, don't go following the sound. It is likely someone lurking who should not be there and is up to no good. Could it be a haint? Sure. I mean, I've seen my fair share of weird stuff out here in Appalachia, and it's certainly nothing I want to mess with either way. So whether you believe that it's something paranormal in nature or it's just a person trying to get you out there, the best thing to do is wait, listen, watch. You see anything suspect, call the police. Best course of action on that one. Some folks believe that not whistling at night stems from Native American lore, that if you whistle at night, you'll attract skinwalkers. Now, we are not getting into skinwalkers right now. That's for another episode in the future. But I didn't find anything verifying and tying this back to native lore at all. I'm not sure about that. All I do know is that these stories have made their way around the internet like crazy. And just one more thing. I've also seen people instructing others to close your curtains and lock your doors at dusk. What is that about? Are we not supposed to ever be outside after dark? What about in winter when the sun sets at like frickin' noon? Like, that's insane. I close and lock up everything when I'm ready to go to bed. Mostly because one of my primary fears is leaving my window uncovered and waking up to someone staring at me. Having a giant dog helps with that, but I still don't like staring out into the void when I'm trying to sleep. Thinking you have to cover your windows once it's dark, though, like, nah, come on. We're outside after dark all the time. We have bonfires in the summer. Sometimes we swim at night. You go hunting in the pitch dark here. I've spent many hours out in the woods in the dark with my dad and Pappy as a kid, chasing after rabbit dogs. Sometimes we were even out in old cemeteries in the middle of the woods. And that's probably just another one of those things that likely made me into the weirdo that I am right now, but y'all don't have to be doing that, unless it just creeps you out to have the windows open when it's dark out, and in which case, hey, I feel that. Cover away. I'm just saying that nothing bad is likely to happen to you if you don't lock your front door at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday in December. That's all I'm saying. Also, yes, I know, I always close with don't go out alone after dark, but the reasoning there is that it's always a good idea to have somebody with you if you're hanging around outside super late. The buddy system doesn't stop being important once you leave elementary school, y'all. Just pointing that out. I could honestly rant about this for ages, but I won't. For the most part, these old superstitions have been woven into scary stories for the internet, and I'm pretty okay with that. I just wanted to set the record straight a little bit as an Appalachian that we really don't expect you to not look into the woods. Like I said, I personally want to see what's out there. I'm not a big fan of being caught off guard, but hey, we all have our things. So, what do you guys think? Have you heard of these before? Online anywhere? Do you follow any creepy Appalachian TikToks? I know there's some great ones out there. There's this one guy, I think his name is Dustin. He has done a really great series of spooky TikToks. If I think of it, I'll try to link him down below if I go in and find his TikTok. But don't hold me to that, because anything's possible by the time I get this up. But yeah, there's some fun videos. Just take some of it with a grain of salt. You know, if you want to whistle at night, that's your business. If you hear something whistle back, maybe it's time to go in the house and do that, lock the doors and pull the curtains thing after all. Just a couple things real quick. Our Patreon is still up and going. We're trying to get back on track with posting every month. We did miss last month. That was my fault. But we do have bonus content up, some videos, some episodes, some other things there for y'all to check out. We're going to have another episode up, hopefully over the weekend, maybe into next week there. We will be taking a hiatus for the month of July to give ourselves a break, recoup, and come back for the second half of the year, which means Halloween season is coming too. It's already June, y'all. October's not that far away. Mandy and Shell will be here with me in Appalachia for the week leading up and through Halloween, so we'll hopefully have some bonus content for ya, maybe pick up some spooky things on our adventures, to do some giveaways. Speaking of that, I'm working on some spooky merch, a new thing I want to try out. I don't want to say too much about it right now in case it doesn't come to fruition, but I think it's going to be something fun you guys might like to purchase, that we can do some giveaways for. I'll let you know more about that as it develops. But that's all for this one, Spookies. Sorry for being late with the episode. I am on the mend. I don't sound like death anymore, so that's a bonus for all of us. But yeah, that's all for this one. Remember, stare into the woods all you want, see what's coming for you, but maybe don't go outside alone after dark. Hey there, Spookies, and welcome back to the Appalachian Spooky Hour podcast. I'm Sam, your host. Just welcome if you're new here. Thanks for joining us if you are, by the way. Yeah, I know that we haven't had an episode in a little while. Real life just sometimes is the most important thing, and that was what happened this time. We had to kind of just roll with the punches, but we're back. We're finishing out spooky season. It's going to be great. Let's dive right in. No notes, nothing to tell you except this story. Alright, Spookies, grab a drink and lock the doors, because tonight we're going to be talking about the bizarre disappearance in Appalachia of Thelma Polly Melton. Thelma Polly McAllister, affectionately known as Polly, was born on February 26, 1923, in the state of Alabama. She was one of 6 children born to Fred and Luella McAllister, and she grew up to be an intelligent, friendly, and generous person, or so that's how she was described by those who knew her best. She was an avid outdoors woman, as well as a frequent hiker. Polly actually went through it a bit in her younger years. She was married and divorced twice, and she never had any children of her own. Whether that was by choice or just nature's design, I do not know. I only know that Polly had no kids. In 1975, she married Robert Bob Melton, her third marriage, and he was actually 20 years older than Polly herself. They lived in Jacksonville, Florida, but spent the fall living in an Airstream camper in North Carolina. Their base camp, so to speak, was in Deep Creek Campground, which is very near the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. When they were in North Carolina, Polly went hiking every single day, if the weather permitted her to do so, of course. It's also noted that she did not typically do these hikes alone. She had two lifelong friends, Trula Gudger and Pauline Red Cannon. The three friends took regular walks or hikes together pretty much every day, and the day that Polly would go missing was pretty much as normal could be for these three. It was September 25th, 1981, and an absolutely gorgeous day. The three friends agreed to meet up after Polly made spaghetti sauce for dinner later that evening, setting out once that was finished. Bob stayed behind in the Airstream as his health was failing and it didn't really permit him to do much hiking or strenuous activity. So it was just the three women who left for the Deep Creek Trail, which was a moderately rated hike that Polly had done numerous times before. I shouldn't say was, I should say is, because as far as I know, the Deep Creek Trail still exists. Red and Trula would go on to describe the day as pretty ordinary. Polly was walking slower than usual, and they were just teasing her about it, how friends do. But outside of that, things were just the same as always. Or at least it started that way. They were in the midst of their hike, taunting Polly's slow gait, when she suddenly just sped up and passed them by. I mean, blew right past them, like she'd been holding back the whole time. So she gets past them, she crested this hill about 75 yards ahead of her friends, and then she disappeared out of sight over the top. The other two women just kept their own pace, just figuring they'd catch back up with Polly once they made it over the hill. When they did make it over, however, she was nowhere in sight. By this time, it was around 4 p.m., and they just assumed that she'd hurried back to camp. They made their way there, arriving around 4:30 to find only Bob at the campsite. He said he had not seen Polly since she'd left on her hike, and he immediately began calling people to see if anyone had heard from her. Trula and Red went back to the area where she had last been seen, attempting to search for Polly on their own. They also informed their husbands, who ended up coming to the Deep Creek Trail, but nobody found her. They inquired with other hikers about whether or not they had seen her on the trail, but nobody had seen anyone matching her description that day. She was reported missing formally to the police at 6 p.m., kicking off a larger search for her in the area. So, give or take a little bit of time, just, to give people some grace, Polly was missing for about 2 hours and then was reported to police, which really is pretty quickly, to be honest. Now, for 4 days, the Deep Creek Trail was closed to the public, and 150 searchers, along with 9 canine search teams, covered over 100 miles of trails looking for her. I know that 100 miles sounds like a lot, and that's because it is. When you factor into that that's 100 miles just out in the wilderness, that is insane. That's a large search area. Not acreage, I know, but 100 miles of walking trails is still a lot. There was just no sign of her anywhere, like not even any sign that she'd left the path at all near where she disappeared. Her friends also insisted that she never would have gone off the trail. She was terrified of snakes, and if you know anything about this area, it's very close to the area where I live. There are several kinds of venomous snakes, and they are out there, and they still would have been actively moving around out and about in September while it's still warm. They're not quite ready to go into their kind of hibernation phase yet when things get cold. At one point, a canine did hit on a downed tree on the trail, but park rangers just deduced that it was likely a place where she had maybe stopped to rest during the hike and nothing of great importance So, yeah, I mean, nothing was happening. There is one very frustrating piece of information. This really bothered me. Law enforcement didn't find it likely that someone had taken Polly against her will. She was 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighed around 180 pounds. Based on this, they figured that she could not have been abducted quietly or without a substantial struggle, especially not in such a narrow window of time between when she crested the hill and when her friends did the same. This this just made me, maybe irrationally, but it did make me mad. Larger people apparently can't be kidnapped. That's a thing, I guess, according to these people. Um, I don't really have a word for that. If I did have a word for it, it would probably be ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying someone of Polly's height and weight couldn't be taken and not leave a struggle, blah, 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 whatever. I'm just saying, don't say, oh, because she was taller and maybe a little heavy set, we don't think she could have been taken without, making a lot of noise and this and that. And I'm like, there are people taller and broader and bigger built than Polly Melton seem to be who go missing all the time. And they're taken, they're killed, their bodies are moved around. Like, the point I'm getting at here is that bothered me. And I just wanted to let everybody know that bothered me. But we're going to move on. Please note that there was a parking lot close to the trail in the area where Polly went missing. Police began to believe she willingly left with someone, though her friends and family were again just adamant that she would not have done this. Despite those protests from people who knew her, investigators were just convinced that she was no longer inside of Smoky Mountain National Park. On the 2nd of October 1981, park officials announced to the press that all evidence suggested that Polly had left in a vehicle, likely of her own free will. I did not find anywhere that said what evidence this was. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that the lack of evidence proving otherwise pointed them in this kind of direction. And they could be correct. She was near a parking lot. We'll get into that a little bit later, but just keep that in mind. They released this by the 2nd of October. She hadn't been missing a terribly long amount of time, but they put that out there into the world. On the day of the hike, her friends had reported nothing unusual going on, as I previously said. But that was not entirely the truth, though her two friends were not necessarily privy to that. Whenever Bob and Polly were in North Carolina, Polly volunteered at the Bryson City Presbyterian Nutrition Center, serving meals to the elderly. She had never missed a day of her work there. She was always reliable and on time. On this day, she chose not to sign up to work and gave no reasoning as to why she declined to do so. I mean, it's possible she simply didn't want to, but given her track record, that doesn't seem likely that she would just say, no, I'm not feeling it today, and just didn't go. Another strange occurrence actually took place the date before she went missing. On this day, Polly used the telephone at the center for the first time ever. She had never used that phone at the center in all of her time working there, and nobody knew who she called or what they discussed. This just adds another layer of mystery to the story. Nobody in her immediate friends group or her family had spoken to her on the phone that day, and there was no long distance charge, which meant the call was local. I know we have younger listeners, so let me just say that this was a pretty big clue back in the day. Before cell phones and all of that, you had to call from a landline or a payphone, and if you called out of the area, you got charged for it, or you could reverse the charges and the person taking your call got charged for it. So whoever Polly was speaking to, they were definitely from the area, as there was no charge either way. It was a local call. That's all we know. In the years leading up to her disappearance, Polly's mental state had been fluctuating a bit. Her mother, whom she was incredibly close with, passed away in 1977. She fell into a dark depression at the loss of her mother, but she seemed, by all intents and purposes, to be doing better around the time she disappeared. During the hike, Trula and Red had not just been teasing Polly about her slow gait. They were also teasing her about a man at the nutrition center who they thought was interested in her. Polly didn't deny this, though she didn't really seem to want to speak further about this man. The two friends didn't think much of it at the time, disclosing the information to police later on. Now, the name of this man appears nowhere. I don't know if the two women even knew the man's name to give to the police, but we never find out who he was. Also, interestingly, her pastor, Tom Harris, stated that he thought Polly was having an affair. He did not elaborate on why he thought this. He just also mentioned that Polly seemed kind of sad as of late, but not necessarily in a suicidal kind of way. I don't know why the pastor dropped in, said, "Oh, I think she's having an affair," and then gave no further information. I don't know if he was pressed for more information. I don't know. But he just dropped this truth bomb and then he was out. A few other interesting bits of information that should also be noted. Polly was a pack-a-day smoker. She also had high blood pressure and nausea, both of which she was medicated for. In 1979, her doctor prescribed her Valium to help her relax, though by 1981 she'd reportedly stopped taking those pills, but it was also reported that after she went missing, her husband's bottle of Valium was found in their camper, and some of the pills were unaccounted for on the day of her disappearance. Kind of loosely implying, I guess, that Polly could have taken them, but I mean, it's possible her husband had just taken them. I don't know what to do with that information. It's just info that was there, and it just seems like it could be noteworthy because maybe she did take them. Maybe she was not mentally all there as everybody thought she was. Polly's case went cold really quickly. There was just no information or leads about her whereabouts until April 24th in 1982, when something kind of crazy happened. A check that was made out to Polly Melton for interest on a bank certificate was cashed at the Birmingham Trust National Bank in Birmingham, Alabama. Now, she had some family that still lived in the area because, as we've discussed, Polly was born in Alabama. Frustratingly, the bank teller had no memory of who cashed the check, nor could they provide a description of the person at all. The person who cashed this check just remains a mystery, though this did sort of corroborate the idea that Polly had run away of her own free will and was still very much alive somewhere. So then we have to ask, what happened to Polly Melton? Personally, I'm in the camp that she left on her own to escape her life and just start a new one. I know I was very frustrated with the police for insisting she could not have been taken of her own free will just based on her height and weight and blah blah blah. I didn't say I thought that she was, just that I thought it was arrogant that they would assume that. I think she was possibly discontent with her life, with her relationship with Bob. You know, he was much older than her and not in the best health. It's very possible the loss of her mother kind of put her own life into a new perspective and she just suddenly wanted out. The thing that's just, I don't know. The whole thing's bizarre. That's what I know. I think whoever she was with on the phone that day was somebody who was helping her. Maybe it was the man from the center who had a potential interest in her. If she was really having an affair, whether it was with that man or someone else, I mean, irregardless of who it was, she most likely made her escape plans with that person if she was in fact having an affair. We don't know that. That was never proven. We don't know. The only person we have to go off of with that one is the pastor who threw it out there and then didn't elaborate, and her two friends just saying that this man at the center seemed to be potentially romantically interested in her, or had a crush, however you want to say it. But yeah, I think she sped up ahead of her friends on purpose that day so she could take off to the parking lot out of their view. That way, there was no having to explain anything if they caught up with her. I think she just simply walked out of her old life and into a brand new one that day. Maybe she's leaving that in because podcasting's not glamorous. I didn't think you guys thought so, but you know what I mean. Anyway, haha. I think she could have been living her life under a different name. I don't know. Maybe she went to Alabama, or maybe they were just passing through and she cashed the check, or he cashed the check. There's no way of knowing. Everyone who knew Polly said she was acting fairly ordinary that day, and in the days leading up to her disappearance. She even had a visit with her dad, who found nothing unusual about his daughter. I mean, sure, she exhibited a few out-of-character moments, like skipping work at the center, but I mean, it's not that unusual for someone to take a day off, even if it's something they enjoy doing. That's just human. I truly do not believe something nefarious happened to her. I don't think she disappeared into the park. If she had, surely those canines would have hit on something besides a log. But then again, if she walked off the trail into the parking lot, did they not track her into the parking lot? Like, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a mystery, I'll give you that. You know, we'll never actually know. Not unless something totally wild happens and, you know, we're 40 some years out from this happening. Polly Melton's most likely departed from this mortal coil, and whoever she left with probably is as well. We'll never know. But I, for one, think Polly just wanted out. Maybe she didn't want the stigma of a third divorce. We don't know. But she's gone and she never came back. So, what do you guys think? Did Polly wander off into the park and they just didn't find her? Did she leave with someone against her will? Did she leave with someone of her own free will? Who cashed the check? I want to know what you guys think about all this. We've covered a few different true crime, kind of missing person things. A couple of them in the Smoky Mountains, if I'm not mistaken. And this one just hits different. Because I don't think anything truly bad happened. I think she just wanted to leave. But that's just my opinion. That's all for this one, Spookies. We're going to have some special bonus Halloween content this weekend for you. Yeah, it's going to be great. If you are on Instagram, you know the first episode of Cinema Spooks was in the can. The audio was terrible. It was bad. We have to redo it. So that's coming soon too. The week of Halloween. Yeah, we should be back on track through the end of the year. We'll take a little break around American Thanksgiving time for a breather and then do some holiday stuff. And yeah, we appreciate all of you sticking with us even when times are rough over here. But yeah, we'll see you in a day or two for some bonus content. And remember, until then, don't go outside alone after dark. Hey there, Spookies, and welcome back to the Appalachian Spooky Hour podcast. I'm Sam, your host, and Middle Ground Mandy's here today.
Yay! Middle Ground Mandy. I'm going to own that.
You are the middle ground here.
I am.
Um, Nothing super of note. If you guys are looking for exclusive bonus content, including blog posts written by us, etc., you can head over to our Patreon. I'll link it in the description of this episode. Don't feel obligated, but there are free tiers if that's something you would like to do. In this episode, I feel like we're going to talk about something you don't see as often when speaking of Appalachian lore, folklore, that kind of thing, and that's fairies, fae, fair folk, whatever you kind of choose to call them. But I think in this episode we're going to stick mostly with fae because I just don't really care for the word fairy. It makes me think of the cartoon ones in little pink
The
skirts and
the second you say fairy, I'm picturing Tinker Bell. So
yeah, same.
I also like the word fae.
Me too. Fair folk too.
Or fair
But
folk, yeah.
so if you guys are unfamiliar with those phrases, which I know there's some people who don't know that fae and fairy are technically the same thing. Fairy's more of our more modern English word, I feel.
Mhm.
So when you hear us say fae and fair folk, all the same thing.
It's
Uh,
all the same thing, yeah.
so here in Appalachia, we kind of have the unique perspective of being very heavily Celtic influenced, but also very heavily Native American influence because of where we are. Um, Even in my own family history, we're predominantly Celtic. um, that's just where people came from and kind of settled this area. And of course, the Native Americans were here way before any of that. Um, I think that people are under the impression that a lot of our Fae tales came with the settlers. And that's not true. The Native Americans were running into these creatures. They actually referred to them as hidden folk, and this encompassed Fae, certain types of witches, and interestingly, werewolves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
so hidden folk is kind of what they were known as here. Um, but you still got a little bit of that Celtic influence
Mhm. Mhm.
woven into the tapestry. They called them little people, good
Oh, I've
folk.
heard that one. I've heard yeah, I've heard that one before.
Um, we actually did an episode not terribly long ago about the Pukwudgie, which is a type of good folk, hidden folk, whatever you want to call them. And now Pukwudgie's not really a good folk, I guess, but a hidden folk.
Yes.
They're the same sort of entity that we're talking about.
Yeah, same family.
Yeah, same concept. Interestingly, what I learned reading for this episode is that Appalachian Fae are actually thought to be guardians of the wilderness,
Interesting.
which
I
makes
can
sense.
believe it. Yeah, no, that the
Um,
second you said that, I was like, "Yep." Mhm.
they're known to be helpful if you respect their domain, but if you do anything they feel slights them in their wilderness home, they're gonna punish you.
Which is pretty standard. Well, if you, what I would call Celtic, Scottish, Welsh,
Yeah,
Fey lore, one of the most common things is yeah, if you treat them well, they'll treat you well. If you slight them in any way, ooh. So that
yeah.
tracks. That tracks. Okay.
Um, One that I've mentioned before previously, I can't remember what episode specifically. It could have even been the Pukwudgie. I don't remember, but Will of the Wisps is a tale that has carried over. Um, Not exactly the same, but same concept.
Yes.
They're more of a nasty trickster type fae that wants to lead you out in the forest so you get lost and then die.
Yeah, they're pretty malevolent.
Agreed. The interesting one that I found, and I love it, is the Holler Fae.
Oh, just the name of that. It's an immediate win. Please explain.
Well, for those who aren't familiar with all of our Appalachian vernacular, a holler is like a valley. It always has like a body of water running through it, like a creek. A lot of times here, if you live in a holler, the road runs with the creek. It's just a natural valley in the hills and the mountains. what I love about these Holler Fae, and I never heard of this, guys, until this. Like, I am so disappointed that child me did not know this was a thing. Um, they actually tend to resemble the wild plants and flowers that grow in hollers here, like cornflower, honeysuckle, black cohosh, Queen Anne's lace. Um, they blend in with the natural flora and fauna, and they're kind of protectors of the holler. And like, that's amazing.
That is amazing. So you're saying like they're tiny little people that resemble or dress or blend in with the native flowers?
Yeah, I always was under the impression, and you know a little bit more about Fae lore than I do, but I was always under the impression that the more like natural Fae that are protectors of like um, nymphs and whatnot, they blend in with their environment, and I always assumed they don't look like little people. Does that make sense? Like, I
Yeah,
can't figure
no,
out
it
exactly how I'm trying to put it, but
it does. There is some have drawn connections that Greek mythology and Roman mythology and the nymphs and the naiads and the I was going to call them Perseids. I don't know if that's what they're called.
okay. Alice in Wonderland,
Mhm.
when the flowers come to life, they look like in my head. That's what they look like. They have
That's
little.
probably not inaccurate.
They have like little green stem bodies, and like their faces is like are like part of the flower or the flora, whatever they're blending with, and they
Mhm.
just like a walking stick, but like with a little face.
Well, I do think that's a subset. Yeah. I mean, and some fae are described very particularly like brownies usually have a
Yeah.
very distinct description, like they wear a certain color. They usually look that's more going into hobgoblins, but yeah, like that description tracks. Like I like it that they're these little tiny, like little flower. Like Alice in Wonderland is actually a very good description. That
Yeah,
is
like
kind of what crosses my
yeah,
mind.
I want to call them marigolds, but they weren't marigolds. Maybe they were marigolds. I don't
They
remember
might
the
have been
flowers
marigolds.
that had the
Yeah, the
faces.
flowers. Yes.
Those that like yeah, that's what I picture. I could be way off, but that's what my brain says. Um, and I feel like some of the lore that we get with the Fae in Appalachia blends in a lot with some of what I would call the more recent lore, especially the stuff that pops up on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't go on TikTok, which I shouldn't go on TikTok because the place is a cesspool, but like I can't help myself. Um, that's where the whole trend in the past couple years has really started with the "don't look in the woods,"
Yes.
Appalachia will kill you, don't whistle after dark, all of that kind of thing stems from that. But that all really ties back to a lot of the lore with the Fae, both the stories brought
Yes.
by the Celts and what the Native Americans were saying all this time. Travelers were warned, don't follow strange lights into the woods. If you hear strange music, don't follow it. That sort of thing. And it
Yes.
all has bled together. And I think that's where we get a lot of this. Oh, if you hear something, no, you didn't.
Yes.
They've just dumbed it down. Like
Yes.
they've taken the core of it away.
Yes. I remember when I was very little, um, being warned to that fairies would take away misbehaving children. That was something I remember being told, and I think that just a lot of those myths from all across because there's Germanic versions, there's all across the British Isles, there's like you said, that Native American related lore. And I do think some of it over time has just amalgamated into this big mythos. Because a lot of it's so similar. So similar.
Um, there is a Native American, specifically Cherokee, um, creature. I hate butchering Native American words. I hate doing it, but like the spelling of this Nunnehi, Nunnehi, something in that vein, perhaps. These were creatures that the Cherokee described as immortals, and they lived specifically in the highlands of southern Appalachia,
Oh, okay.
which is interesting.
No.
Okay, so regardless of the location, the Nunahi, Nunahai, I'm sorry if I'm butchering that word terribly, they were invisible to the human eye and actually dwelled in places where the Earth's energy is said to be strong. So I guess they were fed by the energy of the Earth, which makes sense if we're viewing these as like earthbound, like bound
Mm-hmm.
to an element. Um, Stories about them, lots of themes about protection. They're said to watch over the land and the people. Sometimes they get involved in human affairs, primarily protecting the Cherokee tribe from threats or guiding them where they need to go when there's trouble. Um, People said they were fierce warriors if you provoked them. They battled negative forces. Um, Understanding about the local native culture, natives are very tied to the land, so it makes sense. It just makes sense. Natives are very tied to the land, that they would have these tales of protectors and things that live off earthly energy kind of hovering around, taking
Yeah,
care
that
of
makes
business.
sense that there would be. Yeah, I almost would attribute it to something like a nature spirit or a nature guardian.
Yeah,
That
very
yeah, that
similar.
makes sense.
Very similar. Um, of course, there's others. We already talked about the Holler Fae, which live in the valleys. There was another Cherokee legend. They just referred to them as little people in English. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the Native American term for that because I'm not even going to get close. Um, Weirdly, the little people, I couldn't find a ton about them, but they're often associated with a strong smell of watermelon or cucumber, which is a sign that they're near. But the smell of cucumber also could mean there's a nest of copperhead snakes nearby. So if you smell
Oh.
that, don't go looking for fairies because you could end up getting bitten by a venomous snake. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. And as an aside, you should never go looking for fairies as an FYI.
Okay, touche. Um, do you have any fairy related stuff you want to talk about?
um, I guess just that, like, recent uh media, fae has become a very popular word when you think of things like the ACOTAR series and everyone's fae obsessed. But I took for granted in my youth how much, like, I don't know about you and your family, but we always had wind chimes and to fight off fairies. And I didn't think much of it at the time. And little things like leaving honey out for good luck. So my family, although never using the word fairies, believed in fairies. The other thing too is my nana, very especially, would tell me that if someone, especially me, because I had a very bad habit of daydreaming and checking out, going to lunch, and she would always say, "Oh, Mandy's away with the fairies." Um, and that one stuck with me. But it's one of those little things where that we come from. I mean, Canada and the United States are not drastically different, but I'm my nana was an immigrant from England, and those little things, like, I never forgot that. I always have bells to warn off fairies. I don't follow lights. I do sometimes leave out honey. And it's those little things that are quite that people do. They might not even know that, that why people hang bells and stuff like that is to protect you from fairies.
Which bells are to keep witches out of your house?
Well, witches and fairies in some cultures are very highly connected too.
Truth, but I'm
Hmm.
just saying we
Yeah.
we didn't do the fae thing really. Did I ever tell you I saw a fairy once? A fae, a fair folk.
No. No.
Okay. Nobody laugh at me, but this happened. So when I was a kid, my mom worked night shift, and my dad, where we live, he was a coon hunter, squirrel hunter, rabbit hunter, and like coons you hunt at night.
Okay.
So I assume that's where he was this particular evening. And my mammy came and stayed with me. My sister might have been there. I don't remember. She's 10 years older than me, so it's possible she wasn't there. Um, I lost a tooth.
Oh
That's the
yeah, the
first
good
thing.
old tooth fairy.
I'd lost a tooth. So my mammy came to stay with me. I'd lost a tooth. I was like, hey, I got to put this under my pillow. The tooth fairy's not going to come if I don't. And she's
Hmm.
like, whatever. So I put it under the pillow, and I don't remember. I guess she was just up. Like, she's like, I'm not going to lay down and go to sleep. Your dad's going to be back. Your mom will be home. So I'm in bed. I'm laying there, and there was no door on the bedroom door, so the light from the kitchen kind of shined in to the bedroom where I'm at. And there's a lamp on the dresser, and the dresser's between the bed and the door frame.
Okay.
So the light's like shining and making shadows, and I swear to you guys, I'm laying there, I'm trying to fall asleep, and I saw a little person inside the lampshade walking around peeking at me, and I'm like, oh my god, the tooth fairy's here. She's in this lamp. Like, she's in this room right now. And I'm like, oh my god. Like, I'm awake. And my thought's not, oh my god, there's a mythical creature. I'm like 7. This is terrible. No, my thought was, I'm not asleep, and she's not gonna leave me any freaking money.
Oh, that's why Ray was going. I would have been so mad. I'm like, I'm not going to get my money. I'm not going to
So
get my. Well, we would have gotten a loony, a dollar. Um,
yeah, so she like hid, he, she, whatever, it's inside a lampshade. All I can see is its shadow, and I can only see its shadow because it's backed by the light coming from the kitchen.
oh, right, because the light's shining in
Mhm.
through that doorless archway. Okay.
And I wasn't asleep yet, so I know this wasn't a dream because I can distinctly remember being like, well, I'm just gonna go to sleep. And maybe the tooth fairy will hang out long enough that they'll have mercy on me and still leave my money. And I'm assuming when I woke up the next morning I had money because I don't remember being mad that I didn't.
Yeah, I think you would actually remember if you actually failed that
But like,
mission.
that is so vivid in my head. When I close my eyes and picture it, I can still see it.
Interesting. No, I've not heard that one from you before.
And it
That's
had
new.
wings because I could see the little outline as it walked laps inside this lampshade. But the lampshade never moved. The whole thing was bizarre. And I guess it's possible I was like half asleep and just thinking about it, and I imagined it. I'm a child and I had a very vivid imagination, which I still have now. So
Hmm.
like, I'm not saying that I for sure saw a fae. I'm just saying I saw something weird. Maybe my brain conjured it up. I don't know.
I think it's funnier to think that there was a fae in there, but it's not the tooth fairy. It just happened to be there, and then they got upset because you mistook it for something that wasn't there, and like, oh, that poor kid.
Yeah. So, also of note, guys, a couple years ago when COVID was still going on and we couldn't do a lot for Halloween, my cousins had a Halloween party and I dressed up as the Eastern Kentucky Tooth Fairy, and it's one of the best costumes I ever made.
Oh, I wish I'd seen that one in person. That was grade A
Inspired
Halloweening.
by my own childhood experience with almost not getting 50 cents or whatever was left over. And I remember thinking, oh, I should, call my mammy in here, but I was too freaked out thinking if I made any obvious noise that it would leave, and I just wouldn't, like, I'd just be stuck with a busted tooth, which my mom kept all our teeth.
As did mine. Yeah, my mom has them in a box somewhere. Yeah.
And I'm like, first of all, that's serial killer stuff.
Yeah, I was so thinking that my mom has a box of my teeth.
Yeah. And like, of course, I knew she had my sister's teeth because I'd seen them in the box. It never occurred to me that she also had my teeth because, duh.
Yeah. Yeah, that she has my teeth, and I think it's kept beside my first hair clipping. So she's got my hair and my teeth, and that's the start of
Yes.
an amazing ritual.
So, whatever I did see is not a tooth fairy.
No, no.
Because I totally
That's what I
buy
think
that.
is so funny. It probably was there, but it wasn't the tooth fairy.
And like, I totally buy that meme that's like, the tooth fairy hints that there's like a more terrifying bone fairy that collects all the other parts. And I'm like, yeah, who's the femur fairy?
My brain was in the tibia fairy.
Yeah, like, when you lose a finger, where's the small digit fairy? Just
I mean,
saying.
I mean, I do also believe that fairies, when things go missing in your home and
Hey,
you don't know where you put them, I always tell the fairies to bring it back. I fully believe they just come in and take the stuff you're too stupid to put away.
see, I think it's the ghost of my family members who just want to torture me.
That is also, well, especially in your neck of the woods. Yes, I
Yeah.
would believe you have passed on family that would just be trying to make your day interesting.
I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't put it past any of them.
No.
I know you all are here. Yeah, like some stuff I read, there's, fae for each element, and I'm like, I don't want to
Mhm.
know what a fire fairy is, but there's thistle fairies, dryads. Mentioned already brownies. There's things like the puckwudgies, things that look like what we might call goblins. They all kind of blend together a little bit into fae lore, or based on what I know about fae lore, which isn't a lot until I read stuff for this.
I always like to give a mention because they freak me out. Are changelings, fey changelings,
Ooh, God, yeah,
the
those
swapping
stories
swapping
are
babies.
yeah, and those
Mhm.
stories exist everywhere.
Yeah, that is a another one that spans different cultures, different over different times of these creatures that swap your infant baby out for different reasons. But you know, that's a big one about fays taking the human baby and putting a fay. Some lore say fay baby, some say full grown fay. It's actually like I've it's a legend that it's actually a very elderly fae who's in their final stages of life, and they swap them out with a human baby so they can live out their golden years in comfort, being swaddled and cared for. But there's many iterations of that, of this changeling thing, and there's and that's the one that freaks me out the most, honestly, is changelings.
Um, when we get into the substituting for human lore,
Hmm.
then we get into the whole skinwalker thing, and that's a totally
Yeah,
different
yeah.
episode.
It branches into
Um,
very freaky places.
it really does. But like I said, everywhere has that
Hmm.
that changeling type lore. Actually, in part of the Nunahi story, Nunahai, they can actually enter a human host and appear as normal people.
Oh,
Um,
that's fascinating.
but they're very benevolent. Um, so they just kind of want to hang out, play some music, dance, have a good time, and then go home. I
Yeah,
don't
don't
fully
drink or eat fairy food either.
understand. I actually found a story. This guy posted it. He had supposedly interviewed this older Appalachian man. I think the guy was from somewhere in Virginia. And the guy wrote this later based on what the guy had told him. And the long and short of it was this guy was a moonshiner. He was out at his moonshine still and he heard this music and he's like, well, I'm going to see where that's coming from. So he starts to look and then he sees this young man and they just kind of look at each other. And then the guy was like, hey, you, in as many words, you want to come party? And the guy's like, I'm going to check this out. It sounds like there's a lot of people out here. So he's like, it's fine, it's just right up here. So they go, and there's just this cabin in the middle of the woods.
Oh, great.
And the music's coming from inside. And the guy's like, come on, come meet everybody. You'll have some fun. Stay a little while. So the guy's like, oh, okay. And at this point in the story, I'm like, if this was really told to this guy and he just didn't totally make this up, like, what kind of crack was this dude smoking?
Yeah,
So
nope.
he goes inside, and there's all these people. There's people drinking what looks like mugs of beer, and some are dancing. There's a band, and it was very twangy music, but it really wasn't hillbilly music. Like
Okay.
it was familiar, but not.
Mhm.
And like the part of the story that really cracked me up is it's like, oh, there was a fiddle and some guitars and a tambourine, and then some kind of flute thing.
Something a flute thing.
I'm like, somebody is fully there just getting down on a pan flute, and this guy's like,
Pan flute.
what?
Yep. That's what I pictured.
So the young man specifically points out this woman in the corner, and she's the most beautiful girl that this guy's ever seen. So he's like, I'm gonna go talk to her. So she comes over, and he felt compelled. Like, he couldn't stop his feet from just taking him over there to talk to her. And they're talking and talking. And she picks up this plate of food and
Oh
gives it to
no.
him. And she's like,
No.
eat this and then we'll dance.
Oh no 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 no.
And he's like, oh, all he wanted was to be near this woman and like dance with her and spend all night with her. He described her smelling like springtime,
Oh no.
like leaves and grass, and he wanted to kiss her, so he did. And it was like the best kiss he ever had. And then she's like, no, 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 eat and drink, and then we'll have fun. But you have to eat and drink. And then he notices people are looking at him. They're all starting to stare at him.
Mhm.
And he feels kind of drunk, but he's not drank anything. So then he tells the person he's telling the story to that his grandmother was Irish. She came over when she was young. She was very, very Catholic. Um, she told him about fairies and how they would sometimes snatch children,
Mhm.
and sometimes even adults disappeared, and that you should never, ever, ever accept food or drink from a stranger.
Yep.
Because once you do, they'll take you away. You're done.
You're done. Yeah.
This hits him like a ton of bricks. He's like, no. So he sits down the food and the drink, and this woman just looks incredibly sad. And the young guy comes up and he takes him out of the house. And he didn't really know how to get back where he came from.
Oh gosh.
So he just wandered in the dark. And then eventually in the morning, he woke up and he was like, well, I gotta try to find my way out. But first, I'm gonna go back and find this cabin. Whole thing's gone, of course. No path. He finally finds his way out of the woods. Um, but he did say he always regretted a little not accepting the food and drink because it was so enticing that he just kind of couldn't forget it.
Oh, yeah, it kind of got the hooks were in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those stories are old as time.
Mhm.
And where you're going to have Fae lore, you're going to have the rules.
The rules, yeah, don't accept food. Don't follow them
Yeah.
off the road.
No,
Don't enter a fairy circle.
don't do it.
Don't do it.
I mean, if I ran out of gas on the side of the road and walked up on a house and some old meemaw's like, you want a cupcake? I'd be like, heck yeah.
Unfortunately, I probably also would accept a cupcake from me, mom. So I
But,
can't say
if we're just out in the woods at night and somebody appears like, you want a cookie? I'm probably going to say no.
well, that too. If they appear, if I'm already in the woods and someone shows up and goes, "There's a party in my cabin," no,
Gonna pass.
no, I'll pass.
Gonna have to say no on that one.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, don't follow strange lights into the woods, that kind of thing. And again, guys, this is where we're getting the if you hear something whistle at night, don't whistle back.
exactly. Yes.
Um, that kind of thing. I've talked. We have a Patreon episode about the whole "don't whistle at night" thing. I think it's bunk.
Yes.
Don't look in the woods. Like, I live here. What am I supposed to look at?
Well, yeah. Essentially, from most of the windows of your home, you are staring into the woods. You'd have to essentially exist with your eyes closed.
Yeah, we're not gonna sit in the dark with the blinds closed every day.
I
But
mean, I've looked into the forests around your home and kind of gone, ugh. Like, it's happened a few times, but
I mean, I've said it before. If there's some eldritch horror out there, take me before Monday. I don't have to go to work.
yeah,
But
just before your shift starts.
just as a good rule of thumb, don't follow lights into the woods. I mean, for all you know, it's a meth lab.
Yes, fey stuff aside, just yes, there is the human horrors still exist, and it could be meth lab is up on the list.
So that's just a good rule in
Yeah.
general. Don't follow strange lights into the woods. Um, interestingly, everything interesting on the internet happens on Reddit.
Reddit is great. I'm just going to throw that out there right now. Reddit is wonderful.
When
Yes.
I was researching, somebody asked on Reddit, I live in Appalachia in a very mountainous region. Does anyone know if the Fae have a presence here? I know there's a very high activity of spirits here and malevolent beings in the woods, which is why I never go in the woods or alone or when it's dark. Um, the responses were fascinating. One
Really?
person said Fae are everywhere, which, true. Like, most places have a story of some kind.
Yes.
You're going to be hard pressed to find a group of people who don't have a story about good folk, fair folk, whatever you want to call them. Their
Mhm.
tales as old as humanity.
Yes.
Um, Somebody said they've gotten some odd feelings when hiking alone in the mountains in Pennsylvania. They like to think that there's Fae walking with them out there, kind of watching over them, which is
Mhm.
interesting.
I've felt that in the mountains here before.
Somebody got absolutely owned for suggesting that some were here before Europeans arrived, and they cite the Pukwudgie as an example, but others followed Western Europeans across the ocean. Um, and they said they've heard plenty of tales of Irish and Scotsmen and women leaving their homes so they could escape possessive or jealous fae, only to arrive here and see this creature waiting on the dock for them. And then somebody absolutely owned them and was like, they didn't follow Europeans over, they were already here.
Oh, I mean, yes, they were already here, but I also think that, some really jealous, mean Fae would absolutely get on a boat and follow you here.
I mean, if you've got something at your back,
Mhm.
it's not going to leave you alone.
No,
Um,
it's not
and
going to care about the ocean.
no, and we saw that in stories like the Pukwudgie, like the woman who it just kept tormenting her, and eventually she just had to move. And
Yes.
I don't think it followed her wherever she moved to, but it tortured her so long that she was just like, I have to go. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't know about that. I don't know a lot about it, but these people were going at it.
Watching people
Somebody
fight on
else,
Reddit's a good time.
when somebody else was like, I live in the foothills. I've traveled around the South a lot. There's Fae everywhere. I've got hundreds of photos of them. And I'm like, I want to see some of those photos.
Yeah.
Send those over.
Receipts.
But
Receipts.
I do have a friend. Um, I won't give her name because I don't know if she would want me to do that. But she's been posting a lot online. I don't know if I've told you about this, where she's seeing all the lights.
Mm-mm. No.
Oh, it's like lights in the sky. She's been seeing them for a while. And she's posted video, and they are some of the weirdest things I've ever seen. They change color, they change like how they pulse. Some of them get really, really close. Um, she posted a video the other day. I'll have to find it and show it to you. Um, where she was sitting outside with her baby watching the hummingbirds come to the bird feeder, and you can see it. Something manifests next to the like hook that the bird feeder is hanging on,
Oh my goodness.
and it looks like a little orange and red ball, like wispy, like smoke, and it travels up the pole and then just disappears.
She needs to put out some honey and treats, honey and bread.
She,
That's
I
all
don't
I'm going to
know,
say.
I I don't really know what she would call them.
Mhm.
Just that there's some sort of creature, they're interacting, they're around her home. She's actually posted videos of them when she's traveled other places.
Interesting.
They seem to kind of just show up wherever she is.
Huh.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'll tell you more about it. Like I said, I don't know if she would be interested in talking about it, but I might reach out to her and see if she would want to.
I would love that. Like I
She,
would like to hear that episode.
yeah, she sees them like in the sky a lot, and um, she actually's got really into like the sound healing stuff and everything, and she's thinking about hosting like a sky watch party.
Oh, wow.
I might go.
Go. Go.
I kind of want to see this like with my
Yes.
eyes. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's plenty of things out there that we can't explain what they
Mhm.
are, why they happen. Some of them we slap a label on, like lights in the sky. Oh, it's aliens. um, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, fairy, that's crazy. That's Tinkerbell." Like
Yes.
that's been ingrained in us because of how it's been portrayed in pop culture. But like, fae stories are old. They're
Mhm.
ancient. They're everywhere. Something's going on.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Middle ground Mandy is leaning into is a believer in the Fae. I will say that. I my foot's stepping into the other side of the, the middle ground there.
Which, even when I was growing up, you keep a horseshoe above your door.
Yes.
And we had
Yes.
one. And, like, if it's right side up, it catches luck. If it's upside down, it pours bad luck out. But they're
Hmm.
also made of iron.
I would say it's the iron. Yeah.
And iron keeps fays out of your business.
Hmm.
I never heard of wind chimes scaring away fae, but I can see it because we use them for other things that are similar.
Yeah, it was always sort of understood that there's a story about a fey queen, a fairy queen wearing bells when she rides her horse.
Mm,
So
gotcha.
some say bells may entice, but I was always raised to believe that bells or wind chimes by your door, by your window, by where you can hear them, just doesn't scare them off, but just deters them from coming into your home and messing with
Yeah.
stuff.
And it's, I'm sure, like you said, witch bells, it's all very similar.
It's all similar, yeah,
It's
same reasons.
there to scare off something you don't want coming in your home,
Hmm.
which there's a lot of things people do for that. Putting change in the corners and
Oh,
salt on the
I have put I would say
windowsill,
I have put salt on sills and doorsteps, no problem. Yeah, I've salted.
graveyard dirt. You can use graveyard dirt for anything.
Mhm.
So, there's lots of ways to protect yourself if Fae is a worry that you have in your life.
Yes, if that's something you're concerned about.
Now, I just said when I was a kid, we had a horseshoe over at our front door, and I saw fairy in that house, but we didn't have anything over the back door.
Oh, that was a mistake.
She came
Oops.
right in. She came right in through the back door, man.
That's exactly what happened. Yep.
Gotta watch out for that tooth fairy. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah, here we are talking about, oh, keep the fairies out. And it's like, no, as small children, we were literally like, here's a part of my body. Give me money.
Yeah, right. Like, here's my bone, tiny witch.
Yes,
Please leave me
please.
coins as you take your purchase. Like, and what's
Now
even
that's a story I'd love to know where that came from because I don't actually know the origin of how we came up with the tooth fairy, but I'm just saying.
hold on, and we'll find out.
The myth of the tooth fairy.
Um, apparently, in some cultures, teeth were believed to hold magical properties. Losing a tooth could bring you bad luck. Others said it could ward off evil spirits. Oh, Vikings apparently are said to have worn children's teeth as good luck charms in battle. Um, there's a French story about a mouse who transforms into a fairy and hides a king's teeth under his pillow. It's been going on for a while.
Okay.
So,
And now we give them away for money.
yes. I'm going to find some Vikings and just start selling teeth.
Well, now I know I'm going to have to go through my mom's keepsake box because I can make some money on that. Sell them
Um,
off to.
apparently, after World War II, especially in the US, is when the tooth fairy really kicked off.
Okay.
So, it looks like they kind of are part of a lot of different cultures around the world and are based on whatever like the lore specifically was for the area. But yeah, I love this. Some view the tooth fairy's monetary exchange as a way to introduce children to the concept of money and the free market.
No.
We just wanted 50 cents.
I
It
just
wasn't that
wanted
deep.
No, I just wanted my loonie, and when I got my loonie, I mean, inflation, what can a dollar buy you now? But and then I was going to the corner store and I was buying candy to rot out the rest of the teeth that needed to come out. So there I didn't think about taxes or money or capitalism. None of that came to my 6-year-old mind.
No, I don't think any of us were like, ah, yes, I'm going to save this and put it in stocks and bonds. No.
Yes, children this day and age could go to the tooth fairy and ask for crypto.
One time on Teen Mom, Farah gave her kid like $500 for a tooth or something crazy. It was like a lot of
Whoa!
money. It was a lot of
Whoa.
money.
I
It
mean,
might
I
have even
know.
it might have even been more than that. I just remember thinking, like, what the hell? Like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Give her a buck.
Yeah, no, a dollar's fine. I mean, inflation and cost of living increases. Sure, I mean that $1 could be $5, but
No,
no.
come on. Like, all right, that's nothing enough about the tooth fairy. So yes, do we believe in fairies, fae, fair folk?
Yes,
Um,
that's my vote. In some iteration, not all iterations. I don't believe in the tooth fairy, but
I saw that bitch. She's real.
oh, I just think you happen to have one in there that was like, oh crap.
Um, I don't know. Like, I can see how that lore though has really bled over into things we still
Hmm.
believe now. And I do think there are things that can exist, whatever we want to call them, like fair folk, good folk, spirits, they all have names. Um yeah, I mean, there's got to be something out there, right?
It's rooted in something.
Most folklore has something that started it and a reason why it became prevalent and why it sticks around today. Do I think there's like entities that kind of guard natural places? Yeah, because people are stupid and would destroy everything.
Yeah, I agree. There's absolutely spirit, whatever you want to call them, spirits or nymphs, fae, whatever. That there is someone, something out there trying to protect the natural places.
I think the lesson here is don't do stupid things like follow strange lights.
Yep.
If somebody's calling to you from the woods, fae or not, it's probably something or somebody that wants to hurt you.
Yeah, don't.
Just be careful, exude caution. Um, if you'd like to know more about guardian fairy stuff, go watch Ferngully.
Oh,
Just because that's a good movie.
that's a good movie, and that was actually the first movie as a child. The name of the goo monster and that
The
is
ooze
escaping me.
monster thing, that thing
Yeah,
is
Tim
terrifying.
Curry.
Now, now that is not the first movie as a kid that gave me the ever loving creeps. That distinction goes to Gamork from the Neverending Story.
Oh, fair enough.
Sorry if you guys heard noise in the background of this episode. There's a creature that just won't leave me alone. It's not a fae,
Not a fey creature.
but I think it thinks it is.
Hmm. It's
That's all
definitely
I'm
up
gonna.
to mischief.
That's all I'm gonna say about that. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, just watch Ferngully because it's a good movie, and it does teach you about the environment and like how people will ruin everything.
People ruin everything. Yeah, that
And
sums it up.
really, I hinge a lot of my belief in all of this on the Native American lore. They
Hmm.
were here a long time before anybody else was, just like the Celts. They were there a long time. They knew things.
Yes,
They didn't just make this stuff up for
they were
fun.
very attached to the land. They
So,
knew what was up on
you
both
know,
cases.
I agree. But that's all for this one, Spookies. I hope you learned everything you wanted to know about Faye.
Faye.
Probably not.
No.
Um, Probably not, but it was interesting to kind of discover what exists in Appalachia.
Yeah, I'd never heard of a Holler Fae, but the
Mm-mm.
second you said it, I'm like, no. With just everything else we've talked about in that region, the magic of that region, of course there's Fae. Like it's just like, duh. Like it made perfect sense to me, even though I'd never heard it called that before.
I'm going to quit my job and just search for Holler Fae.
Oh,
I
oh,
want to
that.
be one of you. Let me come.
No,
Let me
no,
come
no.
live among you. I
I'll
want to
find a
be.
fairy ring down
I
in the
want. To,
holler.
I want to be a little plant person.
Oh, that would be cute.
I want to be a mushroom. I want to be a little morel that grows by a creek and a holler and dances in the moonlight and then digs down in the dirt in the fall and sleeps until spring.
That is goals. That's the ultimate message of this episode is just go be a fairy.
I'm going for it.
Okay. I support this life mission.
I'm tired of cars and taxes.
Cars and taxes.
Boo. But yes, that's all for this one. Spookies, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Would you like to do the sign off or you want me to do the sign off?
I'm going to leave this one on you.
Don't follow strange lights into the woods. Don't take food from some random woman who you think is really hot that you just meet in a cabin in the middle of the night when they're having like this raging party. And go outside alone after dark. Hey there, Spookies, and welcome back to the Appalachian Spooky Hour podcast, or just welcome if you're new here. I'm Sam, your host. Just a couple quick things to note right now. You can join our Patreon if you would like exclusive bonus episodes and other content. Yeah, I think that might be it. So, maybe we should dive right into this one. All right then, Spookies, lock the door and grab a drink, because tonight we're venturing into an area of Appalachia we rarely visit. That's right, we're heading to Vermont to discuss the Vermont Asylum for the Insane. The Vermont Asylum for the Insane, which was later known as Brattleboro Retreat to avoid being confused with the state-run Vermont State Asylum, was founded in 1834 and situated on 300 acres of land along the Retreat Meadows inlet of the West River. The facility was built to care for the mentally ill in Vermont, and it was actually one of the first 10 private psychiatric hospitals in the entire country. The hospital was funded primarily by $10,000 left by Anna Hunt Marsh, explicitly for the purposes of building a hospital that would run independently from the state and that would provide adequate care for those with mental health disorders. It was actually inspired by the York Retreat in England, founded to provide humane alternatives to the oftentimes dangerous and deadly treatment of mental health issues. In short, it was meant to be a place of healing, not one of pain and suffering, which I suppose all asylums kind of began that way. It just didn't always stay that way. Despite offering more humane forms of treatment, this was still the 1800s, and this was still a hard time for those suffering from all forms of mental illness. They were working with Quaker philosophies, but the ideas and practices were still a little out there at times. Now, this particular hospital placed a great emphasis on activities that they thought of as wholesome. Patients farmed, did all sorts of crafts, and took long walks outdoors. Those things do seem pretty nice, fairly normal, but then there were strange forms of occupational therapy being implemented. The hospital actually sports a famous tower on the grounds, which was constructed by the patients, brick by brick. It stands 65 feet tall, put together by free labor that was supposed to be therapeutic and good for the patients in their care. Humane treatment back then was clearly not what we'd think of it as today. I mean, that's for sure. Can you imagine the lawsuits and things that would stem from forcing psychiatric patients to build a 65-foot tower just as therapy? Not really something we would see much of today in that particular kind of setting. So we have the tower, built by the patients themselves, right? Well, the tower was meant to be a calming place, providing a scenic overlook of the asylum's many acres. Eventually, the patients began, however, to use the tower for an entirely different purpose. Um, Very depressing here, but they would climb the tower and then jump off the top onto the rocks below. Nobody actually seems to know just how many suicides were carried out in that manner because they kept that very close to the vest. It was a very well guarded secret how many people died at the facility by jumping from this tower. Eventually, they sealed off the tower and closed it up, and it actually remains that way today. A few times a year, I read this a couple places, not sure if this is still true now in 2025, but a few times a year they do open it to the public so that you can climb the winding spiral staircase to the top to admire the views. There has been, however, reports of paranormal activity at this site. There's said to be several residual hauntings at the tower. People claim to see a figure or figures jumping from the top of the closed up tower, though they then disappear before they're seen hitting the ground. There's actually a cemetery adjoining this property that is also said to be haunted, perhaps by those who leapt to their deaths. Shadow apparitions move between the gravestones, some of which are labeled as being unknown instead of being properly marked with names. Aside from the tragic deaths, the tower has even more strange history surrounding it. By the year 1895, it had become a hotspot for the town of Brattleboro. Church services were sometimes held there, hikes would stop there, and it just became this hotbed of local activity. The first strange occurrence took place in June of 1913. A woman named B.E. Leitzinger was walking by the tower when she noticed a strangely tame deer. She followed it all the way right up to the tower, where it just seemingly disappeared. The next day, she took the same walk, saw the same deer in the same exact spot. This actually made it into the Brattleboro Reformer newspaper, mundane as it seems. This story seemed a little off to me in context of kind of what we're looking for, but it showed up a couple different places. It actually made me think of the knot deer. We actually have a Patreon episode about the knot deer. We may someday do a longer extended episode for the podcast. I don't know that we'll ever cover it. But that's immediately what it made me think of. But I kind of think she just saw a deer and it took, she didn't see it kind of take off and then came back and saw another deer and thought it was the same one. But it did make the local newspaper, so I'm not saying there was nothing to it, because there could have been. That's just my opinion. But 10 years later, on June 1st, 1923, something else happened at the tower that was much more intriguing and sad. Carl W. Dodge, who was a cello player for the New York Metropolitan Opera House, was found dead at the tower from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. After this, hooligans began hanging around the tower, shooting guns, and just generally causing mayhem. They officially closed the tower up in 1938. This reason was what was given to the public. There were these kids hanging out there. They were getting up to no good. Somebody's going to get hurt. We're closing it so people stop hanging around. The real reason is most likely due to the patient deaths that took place at the tower, though it is hard to verify any of that because, like I said, a lot of people claim that they purposefully didn't keep on record that these patients died via suicide at this tower that they were made to build while the hospital was supposed to be helping them recover. They probably thought they would lose funding, lose, whatever reputation they'd built up. Better to keep hush-hush about that kind of thing, but I don't know. Strangely, though, the Brattleboro Retreat is not the only haunted asylum in the state of Vermont. Far from it, actually. The Vermont State Hospital for the Insane is located in Waterbury, and in the 1900s, the hospital fell under the direction of Dr. Eugene Stanley. They began to implement treatments that were used in other asylums at the time, and you guys are gonna, this is so familiar, it's the same song and dance we've gone over a million times with these places. Forced sterilization, hydrotherapies, and of course, electric shock treatments. Now, Stanley was also a big advocate for eugenics, which, as we know, has long since been panned by the medical community. He felt that eliminating undesirable traits through selective breeding was the right way to go, acting on the belief that this practice would end the need for these types of hospitals, as the bad genes that caused mental illness would simply be bred out of the population. And again, we've seen that before in different types of state hospitals, asylums, and whatnot. Not exactly new information. I mean, we've talked about these types of hospitals several times before on the pod. Also, how they left a lot of bad energy behind them after they were reformed or after they had closed. It's not really any different here. Both staff and visitors have reported strange occurrences, or they just get generally bad feelings when being in or near the hospital. Do the souls of the tortured, mistreated patients still linger inside this place? I mean, I think it's very possible. Not all the stories, however, are that dark. The Vermont Police Academy is actually housed in a building that once served as the state's tuberculosis hospital. Legend says that a nurse named Mary worked there, and she had contracted the disease while caring for her patients there. Ultimately, Mary also died of TB. She still makes her rounds today, many, many years after her death. Recruits report that the old call buttons still remain in the dorm rooms, left over from when it was a functioning hospital. If you press the button at night, Mary will come and check on you, her spirit calm and gentle. She is still continuing her work, a dutiful nurse even in death. So then, what do I think about these places? If you've listened to previous episodes we've done on different types of asylums and state hospitals, you know that I very much believe that these places really lend themselves to being haunted. Bad things tended to happen in places like these, and even in Brattleboro Retreat, which was built to provide more humane treatment. Bad things still happened. Anywhere you have a lot of people, most of them with mental health issues, locked up together, things are bound to happen. Especially when the staff to patient ratio has an ever increasing gap, which tended to happen more often than not. The folks who took their own lives were clearly suffering and saw this as their only means to an end. It's likely that they were suffering from things that were not yet fully understood and that had no real proper treatment plan as we would know it today. As for the state hospital, the practice of eugenics and questionable procedures were par for the course at the time. It was not an easy period in history for those with mental health problems, or even those without, who were suffering from other things. You also have to remember that these were times when you could be locked up for the craziest things. A husband could have his wife committed because she seemed sad. Or you could be locked up because you got bit by a dog. There didn't have to be a true reason. Anything would honestly do to get you committed if somebody really wanted you locked up. If you went into a lot of these places with your sanity intact, after seeing and being subjected to the cruelty in a lot of these places, you probably didn't stay that way for the duration of your stay. Stories like that of Nurse Mary at least provide a little bit of light in the dark. She was there to help people, to try and save them, and it ultimately cost her her own life. Instead of letting that turn her into something foreboding, she is still trying her best to do her job. Even now, 100 years give or take after she met her end. Not all hauntings are inherently nasty and evil in nature, even if they are quite sad. And I think a lot of times we do tend to forget that because we focus a lot more on the really crazy hauntings where there's a lot of bad energy. It's easier to overlook the stuff that's a little easier to stomach, I guess. In short, these places are likely to be haunted, and very much so. I would actually love to visit the Brattleboro Retreat Tower for myself one day. Maybe I need to plan a trip to Vermont. It's actually one of the few states I have left to visit. Been to New Hampshire, didn't make it to Vermont, so getting some ideas here. Vermont also just seems to have a lot of great areas to check out, and I think it's a place we overlook too often. They are technically part of Appalachia as a mountainous region. Culturally, maybe not Appalachia as we think of it, but definitely part of Appalachia. Yeah, I think we need to look into it more. I'm gonna maybe try to find some more cool places to talk about, but yeah, I was very interested because I knew nothing about any of these places. I didn't know about Nurse Mary. I didn't know about the Brattleboro Retreat and the Tower. Yeah, definitely think these places are haunted. What do you guys think? Have any of you been there? Do you live in Vermont? Did we get anything wrong? We try our very best to do good research, but we also rely heavily on the internet. And there's been a couple of instances where people have come to us and said, hey, I've been there. This actually didn't take place there. It was a different place. If we ever do that, call us out, absolutely. We're always hoping at some point to go back in, edit things, or add on clips where we are like, hey, we didn't realize this was incorrect information. We found it in a couple places. We took it at face value. So, yeah, we always appreciate you guys telling us, like, hey, that's not exactly correct. We try our best to always get things right, but like I said, when you're relying on the internet, things get a little wonky sometimes. But that's all for this one's Spookies. I'd love to stick around a little longer, but somebody's outside revving up what sounds like a dirt bike at 10:30 at night, and I'm about to go find out who it is. So I'm about to break the rule of don't go outside alone after dark. Let's hope I make it back. See you in the next one. Hey there, spookies, and welcome back to the Appalachian Spooky Hour podcast. I'm Sam, your host, and yes, this episode is a week late. We got caught up with the festival and all of that, and time just got away from me, so here we are. Speaking of the festival, it went really well. We got to meet a bunch of you guys. We sold some merch. Actually, what merch we have left, we are going to put up online, hopefully this weekend. If any of you might be interested, discounted prices, it's going to be great. Anyway, let's get into it. Grab a drink and lock the door, spookies, because tonight we're venturing to Athens, Ohio to explore the old Athens Lunatic Asylum, which was actually recommended to us from one of you. So know that we do listen when you guys speak up about things you think we should talk about. The Athens Lunatic Asylum, now known as the Ridges, was a Kirkbride-style hospital built in Athens, Ohio, starting on November 5th, 1868. The original farmland gave the campus of the hospital a whopping 141 acres, but as years went on, the hospital grew to over 1,000 acres, comprised of 78 buildings. I mean, 78 buildings, guys, that's massive. I don't know if we've discussed any previous hospitals that were quite this large. I mean, that's crazy. As we know by now, per the Kirkbride plan, There was a main building that included a central administration area, a wing for men, and a wing for women with their own separate dining halls. This building could house 572 patients, which was double what most Kirkbride buildings held. This building was 853 feet long and 60 feet wide. I mean, just this one building was huge. The hospital actually opened its doors on January 9th, 1874, and within 2 years was renamed from the Athens Lunatic Asylum to the Athens Hospital for the Insane, because that's so much better. Um, it went through many more name changes after that. We're not even going to go through them all because they were all very similar. The important thing was that this place was built to house the mentally ill, whatever that meant at the time. The hospital was open from 1874 all the way to 1993. Like many Kirkbride plan asylums, it was sort of its own small community within the community. They had livestock, fields and gardens, greenhouses to grow plants in the wintertime, an orchard of fruit trees, a plant that made steam heat, and an actual carriage shop. A lot of these jobs and maintenance on the building were taken on by the patients. As part of the Kirkbride plan, skilled labor was seen as a form of therapy, and it also took pressure off the state to provide more funds. If you were mostly self-sufficient at the time, you were much better off. You didn't need as much state funding to stay operational, which could keep your doors open despite whatever was going on, overcrowding, mistreatment, less staff, whatnot. They kind of backed off you a little bit if you were primarily funding yourself. Eventually, more buildings began to crop up. There was a dairy barn, a tuberculosis ward, other types of hospital units, and cottages that were intended to house more patients. These small buildings couldn't house as many people as the main building did. I mean, not by a long shot. We know how huge that building was. But it allowed them to group patients together in like dormitory style settings instead of individual or double rooms. As views on mental health began to change starting in the 1950s, hospitals like this one underwent a lot of changes. As more was learned on how to treat people suffering from different types of mental illnesses, fewer and fewer patients were sent to asylums for long-term care. This means people with conditions that were manageable at home, depression, things that they might label under hysteria. We weren't out of the woods yet as far as more complex issues like Down syndrome and things like that, but they were advancing at least. We were starting to understand better. So by the 1990s, a lot of the buildings had already fallen into a state of disrepair. Instead of large asylums, patients were being sent to small outpatient centers for different types of care. In 1993, the hospital was actually deeded over to Ohio University in a land swap. The property was kept in fairly good shape after being obtained by the university. They wanted to keep it maintained for potential reuse in the future. Rather than tear down the buildings, which happened a lot, we've lost a lot of these great, beautiful, historic buildings that we should be learning about because they were just tore down. But OU decided to instead restore as much as they could and use the area as mixed-use development that they would go on to call the Ridges. Most of the buildings were renovated and are now used as classrooms and office buildings. A couple of buildings, actually, like the tuberculosis ward, were demolished. They were already in bad disrepair, and they were full of asbestos and other dangers. It was harder to remediate them for new use. It was easier and cheaper just to end up demoing some of the buildings, as much as I think they probably would have preferred to be able to save them all. Like all asylums at the time, there were a lot of different patients housed at Athens, and they were all treated, well, not all treated. I will just say there was also, in addition to so many different patients, a lot of different forms of cruel and unusual treatments. There were Civil War veterans, children, old folks, homeless, teenagers, violent criminals. They of course practiced electroshock therapy because that was a popular one at the time. They tried different types of drugs and medication, hydrotherapy, which we know is not good, restraining patients. I know that sometimes restraints are still used, but it's usually a matter of keeping the person from hurting themselves or someone else in an episode of like psychosis. But back then, they would just strap you to a bed and leave you there. Of course, lobotomies were a big thing. Um, Lobotomies were big things at all of these places because they truly believed it helped, or they were just sadistic and like drilling in people's brains. It could have went either way. The point is that treatments were just so abhorrent, especially by today's standards, and it was a bad situation. To kind of give you an idea about who was being kept inside the walls of the Athens Asylum, we go back to 1977. There was a very highly publicized case of a man named Billy Milligan. Milligan was a rapist who supposedly had multiple personalities. He committed armed robbery, he committed kidnappings, and there were at least 3 known rapes that took place on the Ohio State University campus. He was diagnosed as having multiple personality disorder during preparation for court, and doctors said that he likely suffered with it since his childhood. He spent time in several state-run facilities, including Athens, and he claimed to have 10 different personalities. He was the first person to use this disorder as a defense, and he was acquitted for that same reason. After a decade, he was released, and he ended up dying of cancer in a nursing home in 2014. Nowadays, it would be very taboo to just put a known rapist in a hospital with a bunch of other people, including women, and just brush it off. I'm not saying he didn't have a disorder of some kind. He probably did need to be locked up, but there are very specific facilities for that today. He wouldn't just be put in a facility with people with all different kinds of other problems, some of them which were not violent. The hospital actually made headlines again in 1978 when a patient by the name of Margaret Schilling disappeared from the hospital. 42 days after she went missing, which made it January of 1979, she was found by a maintenance worker. She was locked inside of an abandoned ward, which had been used to house patients previously with infectious illnesses. She died of heart failure, completely naked, with her clothes folded neatly beside of her. She is said to have left a stain behind that cannot be removed, just a perfect imprint of her hair and body that is still there, supposedly to this day. She is said to still linger inside the building, peering down from a window in the same ward where her body was found. Other strange, shadowy figures have been seen roaming the floors of the main building even today. Disembodied voices are often heard, as well as footsteps and even the occasional scream. A lot of folks simply feel a presence as though someone is watching them even when they're alone. There's also, notably, been a man in a long black coat seen frequently in the men's room, giving anyone who encounters him just the absolute creeps. Ghost or not, I would not enjoy some weirdo in a long black coat just standing around in the bathroom gawking at me. That's weird. Anyway, the asylum actually boasted 3 graveyards with burials beginning as soon as the hospital opened. Any patient who died and remained unclaimed by their family were buried on the grounds. Up until 1943, patients were only marked with a stone and a number instead of a name. Now, there were ledgers at one point matching the numbers to names, but only one of those actually still exists today per what I found. While the cemeteries are maintained, they're also said to house restless spirits. Shadow figures are known to run through the cemeteries, hiding behind trees and headstones. In one area, the graves form a circle, which is said to have been a meeting spot for witches because somehow witches are somehow always supposedly involved. I don't know how, but that's the story. Witches. As for shadow figures, I can see why people would linger in these cemeteries. Buried after being unclaimed and therefore unwanted by their family, not even given a stone with a name on it. Now, some families may not have been financially able to afford to bring their loved one home, but it's very possible the patients didn't know that. They were simply left behind, buried in a place that had most likely been one of torture and misery for them while living. This was not a happy place for a lot of people. And then to have to stay there after death is its own kind of misery and punishment. In Wilson Hall, a student did commit suicide on the fourth floor from what I found in my research. This actually happened just in 2019, and out of respect for her and her family, I'm not going to name her here. It's easy information to find if you choose to do so, but her death is just another tragedy to add to the list of them that took place here. This place is still taking lives all these years after its closure, albeit in different ways. I said albeit, I meant albeit in different ways. I'm not even going to edit that out, guys. You can just admire the process. Ooh. Anyway, yeah, she did commit suicide. I just don't want to name her. It feels disrespectful. But if you guys would like to read more on that, feel free to do so. I understand being curious. I read about it myself. It just doesn't feel appropriate since this just happened 6 years ago. Wilson Hall is also said to be the most haunted dorm on the campus, supposedly built on top of an Indian burial mound. It's also said to be in the middle of a huge, immense pentagram that's formed by several local cemeteries. I don't know about all that, but I can believe the reports of apparitions being sighted, doors slamming on their own. I mean, look at where we are and what this used to be. It's not a stretch to say that it's haunted. In yet another building, which is known as the Convocation Center, a resident advisor was supposedly killed by her boyfriend, and her spirit now walks the halls. Another student died there in his sleep and pays visit to other sleeping students. These were stories I could not verify, unfortunately. I'm not sure if they're true or just rumors. It's likely they could just be rumors. I did try to look them up. I couldn't find anything concrete, and I don't want to say that these happened, and I don't know that they happened, given that we do have an actual confirmed student death in one of these buildings. I know we've talked about it before in other episodes, but these places are usually very haunted. Whether it is a residual haunting of a patient who passed away there, or other entities that seem to be drawn to places like this because of the immense suffering that took place there. There are rumors, which are undocumented, that patients were chained up in the basement for bad behavior. Without any record, we can never know if this is true, but it certainly seems like it probably was. Given what we've talked about in other facilities and things that I've seen myself in these types of places, nothing would shock me. Punishments were not a rare thing and were oftentimes used as means of containment when buildings got overrun with patients, or when they had those who were so mentally ill that they were very difficult to control. So many treatments were cruel and painful, even if they were actually thought at the time to be helpful. They weren't. And while we know that now, they didn't know that then. Or even if they did know to some degree, There were people involved in mental health care who just enjoyed experimenting, and they could do so on these people under the guise of helping them. It was a sick time with some very sick people involved. And when I say sick people involved, I mean actually sick people with illnesses and diseases, and people who were sick in the head and just wanted to hurt them. There are nearly 2,000 graves inside the 3 cemeteries on the property. That's nearly 2,000 souls who were unclaimed and buried there. That's not including those who died and were taken by their families and buried elsewhere. This place saw a lot of death, and it's safe to assume that some of those folks never really left that place. Now, spookies, I want you to do something for me. If you're not driving your car, or you're supposed to be doing things at work, but if you have the ability to do so, I want you to do something for me. Close your eyes and just try to imagine it. A long, quiet hallway inside an old, ornate building. You're alone. Maybe working late. Maybe just exploring out of curiosity. Down the hall, a door slams shut. You're alone. Or so you thought. Footsteps echo against the walls, making their way towards you. You see no one. A cool breeze touches your skin, giving you goosebumps. The steps go on beyond you, disappearing at the end of the corridor. On your way out, you're hurrying now. You get to the parking lot and pause. Take a look back. The lights are off now. The night janitors flipped the switch as you went out. But your eyes go to a window on the 4th floor, where you just were. You see a woman there, shadowed in darkness, staring down at you. She turns and walks away, disappearing from your view. You were never really alone. Was it easy to imagine when you let yourself picture a place like the Athens Asylum? Can you believe that places of pain and torment can leave imprints and souls behind? I do, spookies. Of all the places we talk about and all the places we've gone, these are the places that carry the heaviest scars. Just something to think about. But that's all for this one, spooky. Sorry for a little bit of noise there at the end. The critter's loose in the studio. But that's all I have for this one. We'll be back on schedule after this week, and I'm just going to go ahead and skedaddle. But I want you to remember, don't go outside alone after dark.